The blue pill represents an antidepressant that was given during the 2000s. The red pill represents HRT because the Matrix as a movie is about trans people. This is News Minute coverage of that, the same. I can go around this myself, but they do talk about it way better than I ever can.
Hello and welcome to the News Minute and News Laundry. I'm Nidhi Suresh. Most of you must have heard of Andrew Tate, a British American infamous for his extreme misogyny. He currently stands accused of human trafficking, rape, and forming organized criminal groups aimed at exploiting women.
So Raj, it's called hero worship.
Tate is also an online influencer where he extensively talks about being a man, giving what he calls emotional motivational speeches, where he negatively talks about gender roles and shapes attitude towards women. Essentially, he's created a dangerous ecosystem for young boys and men known as the manosphere. Today, we're going to talk about something that's been absolutely fascinating and terrifying for me to learn about. It's a story that my colleague Lakshmi Priya has worked on for at least the last 8 months, where she's looked at the extent and the influence of the manosphere, specifically in the context of the Indian subcontinent. It is now available as a two-part series.
I wanted to ask this. Um, there is, I think, a way that you can clip certain uh, places on the stream and take it as a video. Can you, if anyone wants to do it, clip the part from them saying like, "Oh, Navika, thank you," and me just laughing, because that would be amazing for posting as an individual video. If possible, please do it and just send it to me.
The first is called Inside the Manosphere, luring young Indian men and boys. And the second is called Misogyny, Manosphere, and the Making of India's Religious Extremists. So Lakshmi is with me today and she's joined us all the way from Trivandrum. Lakshmi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Nidhi.
So I want to start by asking you, how did we come about in terms of conceptualizing this story, and how did you kind of start researching on this story?
So this really started when my editor, Dhanya Rajendran, asked me to look into this growing trend of young boys, young Indian boys specifically, following Andrew Tate, who, as you mentioned, is this infamous misogynist. So honestly, at first, I didn't think much of it. I just thought that this is probably just a weird internet phase that they're going through, that they'll grow out of it. These are just teenagers being teenagers. But as I started reading more and actually talking to these boys, I realized how serious it was. I'd spoken to teenagers who were just starting to echo these really disturbing ideas about women, that women are gold diggers, that they belong in the kitchen, basic misogynistic stuff like that. And they did not even fully understand what they were saying. And I'd also spoken to parents and
Yes, agreed. Swaraj,
teachers
that was the BJP.
were genuinely confused, like about where this is coming from and why is my son suddenly so angry at women and all of that. And then I really fell down the rabbit hole. I went through, subreddits, 4chan forums, Twitter accounts, and other social media platforms, etc., and seeing all of this misogynistic, brainwashy content that is out there. It was very revealing that this was not just some fringe internet thing anymore. That this is clearly something bigger. So that's how the first.
Yeah, the manosphere is appealing to people because like there are no good models. Like there are no good role models for like men in India anymore. Like who is it? It's either a random Baba they have to listen to, or like a bulked up idiot who is like very right wing and is quite stupid and just a grifter at the end of the day. Like, tell me one good uh, person who is like a good male representative model for students.
Story came about essentially.
And please don't say Amit, please.
We were trying to understand what is pulling our boys into these online spaces. what's making them internalize such hate so much, and what kind of a social environment is allowing this to grow, and all of that. So basically, we wanted it to be a starting point to help people identify these, harmful influences and begin kind of a broader conversation into this.
And there are a few concepts in your story which was new for me as well, like the red pill, the blue pill, and incel, which I really had an eye-opening experience when I read it. And I think maybe some of us are more in tune with these concepts now that there's been a series called Adolescence, which really broke out and sort of was consumed at a large scale. But you had been working on this for months before the series had come out, and I'm hoping that the series actually drew more readers into reading your piece. But for those who have not read it, can you help us understand, in short, what these concepts really mean? What is the red pill? What is the blue pill? Who is an incel?
Sure. So before we get into red pill and incels and all of that, I think it will help to quickly explain what the manosphere itself is. So it's basically this loose, very messy network of online spaces. Like it includes Reddit forums, subreddits, YouTube channels, Instagram accounts, and everything. Then basically talk about things like dating, gender roles, masculinity, etc. But it's all laced with some kind of deep misogyny, and it's not always obvious at first. A lot of it starts off as relationship advice or fitness content and all of that, but very quickly it
One final thing to say about Sushant Singh Rajput's case: if you have a celebrity, that's fine. If you like a celebrity, that's fine, but don't consider him a god. What do you care about his personal life? Yes, that is true. That is true. But people do, like, parasocial relationships exist. Like, people think they are connected to him, and we do that too. We do it with our gods. Like, people who are hyper religious think that they are connected to their god, that the god speaks to them, that some people will take care of a statue more than if it's like more than they would take care of a person. It happens. It's a human condition. It's something that we need to avoid, like, with consciousness. It is not something that can be completely prevented, I would say.
turns into this angry kind of echo chamber where men are encouraged to blame women, blame women and feminism, and even the society at large for everything that they think has gone wrong in their lives. Now, within the
Yes, that
manosphere,
is
there
true.
are all these
Manosphere is like just a right-wing space. It's a conservative space with anti-women. It is the same space. It is like a copy paste of the Sanghi space or RSS space, where everything that is wrong in this world is because of Muslims. In the manosphere space, everything that is wrong in this world is because of women. Just replace one minority group with the other. That is the right-wing funda. It has always been the same.
cultures, and two words that come up a lot, as you said, are red pill and blue pill. The red pill, it comes from the matrix, and in this context it's this metaphor they use to describe waking up to what they see as the harsh truth that feminism has kind of ruined society, that men are oppressed and that women are manipulative and shallow and stuff like that. So if you take the red pill, essentially you are supposedly seeing the real world, and if you're still buying into these ideas of equality or feminism, or, progressive gender roles and all of that, then you're blue pill, which they treat as being naive or brainwashed, sort of. So, and then there are the incels, obviously, which is short for
Okay, I need to get this out clear, and I know because most people are not gonna know this. This red pill and blue pill idea came from the Matrix. Like, for example, this image. Can you guys see? Yeah. Red pill, blue pill. The blue pill represents an antidepressant that was given during the 2000s. The red pill represents HRT. Because The Matrix as a movie is about trans people. It's about people to choose who they really are and not just like go with the whatever the world says, because a lot of times, like in early 2000s, if you were trans or if you were whatever, in America especially, they would give you an antidepressant thinking you're depressed or crazy or whatever, which obviously you weren't, because you were trans, you were born in the wrong gender and like in the wrong social construct of a gender and something that you were not, and you were just trying to break free from it. So the entire movie is about being free from this social construct of gender. Remember, both of the sisters who created Matrix are trans. So the red pill is HRT. It means you take HRT and you become the gender that you want, that you are, and that has been has been mislabeled to you. You break free from that reality. So it is very funny that, or rather ironic to say, manosphere that is very anti-trans, that is very anti-LGBTQ, that is very anti-women, is using the red pill, blue pill analogy, and they are choosing the red pill. Because all of them deep down are just trans women. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm saying that as saying that most of these manosphere guys have internalized homophobia because they have feelings for another guy. They are misogynists coming from internalized homophobia about themselves. Like you can look at, like, for example, Nick Fuentes, or like who was that, Destiny? Yeah, Destiny. Nick Fuentes is the biggest manosphere guy right now after Andrew Tate. He was caught. He likes getting blowjobs from Destiny. He's gay as fuck. And like at least bisexual. And he's like the most biggest guy in manosphere because he doesn't admit it. He does that secretly. Because if he came out as gay or bisexual, again, the grift is over. It's always so funny. It's always so funny to me whenever people talk about red pill or blue pill. Like, you motherfucker are going to take the blue pill because you are never going, because the red pill means you have to be accepting of trans people. Jesus. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, this thing. Case of misogynistic spiral. Yeah, that is true. It is always a misogynistic spiral because she was a woman. The moral judgment was because she was a woman. Anyway.
Voluntary celibates. These are boys and men. Some of them are as young as 13 or 14, and they feel like no woman will ever want to be with them. They believe that dating and sex are things only attractive men can access, and that they've basically been doomed by their looks or genetics to be alone forever. So it can sound extreme, but what's really scary is how quickly some of these boys spiral into this mindset. And at first, it's just some kind of frustration. But the communities they find online, they take that frustration and turn it into a deeper resentment. And that is then directed entirely at women in their lives. And that's kind of a gateway. What starts off as them feeling rejected.
My point is, if any homosexual didn't bother you, you don't have the right to harm them. They are also human beings like you. And they our constitution gives them rights and humanity too. This nature gives what? Okay. So if I yes, homosexuality is not a crime. Homosexuality is not unnatural. Homosexuality is a perfectly natural thing in this world. You can see homosexuality in literally every single animal out there, not just humans. It is not a deviation of nature. It is just a feature of it. Humans also did not have specific gender roles for most of their history. You can look at the Romans, for example. If many, if not all, were bisexual. And no one has the right to harm anyone, because it's not about like, it's basic human rights. It's not like giving special rights to special someones. It is basic human rights. You don't need special rights to define what homosexuality is and whatever. We are being forced to do it because of the right wing rhetoric that is going on. But that it is something I don't like, because being gay, being bisexual, being a lesbian, being trans is just being part of humans, and you should have basic rights. That's it. Basic rights to life and liberty. Basic rights to, be feeling safe in your homes and the community you're in, and not being discriminated against. Yeah, everything says it's natural. It is natural. Like there shouldn't be a requirement to convince anyone that it is not natural or it is natural. It is a perfectly natural thing, and it's only within the right wing rhetoric that people think it's not natural.
Or lonely, that suddenly becomes this full blown ideology. And that's essentially what makes manosphere so dangerous.
And were you at any point surprised while you were doing the reporting that maybe there were young boys who you knew in your family or your neighborhood were already accessing this material and you or anyone in your family did not have any idea about? Were there points where you felt like that happened and you were taken aback or surprised?
So I wasn't very familiar with how teenage boys these days are behaving, or if they exhibit these kinds of misogyny in their everyday lives and all of that. But once I started researching the story, I realized that this is pretty common, in the sense that the casual misogyny in their languages, it is quite striking. There was a young boy that I spoke to, a 14-year-old boy, who casually told me that, yeah, women and men have their gender roles. Women are supposed to stay in the kitchen and look after their children. That is their role. Men are supposed to go out and make money. And yes, I'm homophobic. And he was quite proud to call himself homophobic, that I hate gays and lesbians. And that is what Andrew Tate says, and all of that. So I did not expect that to be, the common language that these boys seem to be using at the moment. But I know that there is another side to this as well. I spoke to young boys who are clearly not anywhere near using all of these kind of language. There are two sides to it. But yeah, this was quite shocking, honestly.
Yeah. And of course this is a huge online community and there's a lot of activity of about this going on online. But when you sort of research, do you think there's a direct translation of that online violent misogynistic thought process and influence being translated to a certain offline behavior as well? Like, have you seen or recorded instances where this has happened? That people have been pushed to take certain steps offline.
Yes, it absolutely does translate. So it might start as just memes, so this kind of banter online, but it doesn't stay there at all. So when I was working on the first story, I spoke to a woman whose teenage son had started calling his own father beta male. I had written about this in the first story. So this was just because he helped out in the kitchen during Onam for making, the sadhya and all of that.
What is a beta?
Ah. This whole idea of beta male is also so fucking funny, because an alpha version is a bad version in IT and a beta version is even a better version. So yeah, his father was better than him.
Male?
Yeah, so beta male is essentially anyone who respects women in manosphere language or doesn't assert dominance per se. This is as opposed to alpha male, who is the dominant person in the relationship. So
And this is my last comment today. India needs people like Dhruv Rathi and Acharya Prashant who liberalize India and give some basic common sense fact science. Yeah, they do.
for this
I
kid,
agree.
even something as simple as sharing domestic work
Also, hey, like, you can give a shout out to me, Like, seriously. Come on. I'm going to be very touchy about it.
was seen as weak. That's why he's calling his own father a beta male. So over time, this mother told me that he began showing this kind of simmering resentment towards her as well, like mocking her for trying to get a job, or telling her she had a female brain and all of this. And all of this came from the content he was consuming. Like he and his classmates, she later realized, were following Andrew Tate. So they were internalizing his.
Andrew Tate is literally the worst thing to happen to men in general. Like, actually, it is the worst thing to happen to the world in general.
His ideas and repeating them without even probably realizing what they meant. And this isn't just one body. You hear about this more and more now, whether it's in schools or there are these WhatsApp groups of men, young boys worshipping Andrew Tate, or even in the way
Good night, good
boys
night.
talk about girls. Some of the schoolgirls that I spoke to, they were talking about the way these boys talk to them, seeing them as something lesser than them. And now, of course, not everyone ends up doing something violent, but sometimes they do. And I have cited an example, Elliot Roger, for example. He was this self-proclaimed incel who was a 22-year-old man in California. He had killed some 6 people before killing himself, and he left behind this manifesto which blamed women for not wanting him. And this guy became a kind of icon in these incel circles. And that's an extreme case. It's a reminder of where this kind of ideology can lead if we don't intervene.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, even here in India, when we hear about things like acid attacks or crimes over rejection, etc., we rarely call it what it is. It is misogynistic violence. But
Yeah, it is misogynistic violence. It's the violence directly towards women because they hate women. And I don't know what I'm doing with the speed because, sorry.
it's all part of this same ecosystem. And as you mentioned, the Netflix to adolescence, that had touched on this too, how boys are being shaped by what they see online. And how platforms like YouTube or Instagram are full of this content that tells them women are the enemy. I had actually written about the show as well. So no, yeah, it's not just online hate. It really does spill over into everyday lives.
And in, like we were just talking about India, but how do you think India has its own Andrew Tate? Has there been, in your research, have you found that there have been?
I am not in a position to comment that because I was not born 100 or 200 years ago. Based on what I know, based on my reading of it, today, these men are trying to recreate the situation to go back to 100 or 200 years ago with this idea that women need to be suppressed. Like, see, you have to realize women got the right to have a bank account in 1970s, 1980s. Before that, women couldn't have a bank account without their husband's permission. So because of which, I would still say today they are better off because of all of the laws that we have. But the manosphere people are trying to like pull us back into that scenario where women do not have the rights and liberty that everyone should.
Been Indian influencers who have come up in the different forms of Andrew Tate, and are they as influential? Is it different from what Andrew Tate is doing at all?
Yes, we absolutely do have India's own versions of Andrew Tate. And what's happening in the Indian manosphere right now is actually, curiously, both very familiar to the template of the Western manosphere and is also simultaneously somehow.
In a sense, yes, in a sense. I'm not saying they want it like directly one on one, but in a sense, yes, they do want it. In a sense, they want this idea that women should be subservient to men. In a sense, they want this ideology to come up where if you're a woman, you're always going to be under a man's shadow. Like maybe in marriage, maybe in like while dating, maybe like as a mother, you're like subservient to your child even. Yes, they want that thing back. I can say as much, like not in like a direct relation, maybe in a direct relation, you can never tell with manosphere people, but at least in essence of it, yes. Because like sati is like the quintessential surrendering your entire being to a man to the point where you kill yourself when the man dies.
How uniquely Indian, which we are actually exploring in detail in this article. So what's happening in India is a kind of desi adaptation of this global, red pill culture. And the language being used is also kind of alarmingly similar. You'll find Indian boys and influencers, using phrases like she got pumped and dumped, or talking about again alpha males and female nature, hypergamous female nature, gold digger women, and it's all the same script basically. And a lot of this happens in Telegram channels and Reddit forums and all that, where already radicalized boys and men basically further radicalize others using these pseudoscientific articles about how women are biologically hypergamous and theorizing that that's why women are gold diggers and all that. But then it is mainstreamized through influencers, of course. We have creators like Elvish Yadav, who rose to fame as a YouTuber and through Big Boss. He was a winner of Big Boss season, I don't remember, but one of the Big Boss seasons. And his videos often include this kind of mocking, aggressive commentary about women. And there's Lakshya Chaudhary, who's known for reacting to feminist content by ridiculing it, with a huge fan base cheering him on. And in Kerala, there's
To be fair, I had no idea any of these existed.
Rahul Ishwar, who claims that women are filing fake rape complaints and destroying men's lives, citing false data without any nuance, basically. And people like Rahul position himself more as a public intellectual also, which at least among certain people lend some credence to his words. So yeah, what we
And as
essentially
a
seeing here
men's rights activist, I'm assuming, right? There is also that
exactly. So he's
intersection.
part of the organization called the All Kerala Men's Association, which is kind of parroting many of these talking points that the manosphere does have, that women are filing fake complaints, they are destroying men's lives, that the law is biased towards women. Gynocentric law is what they call them. Yeah, so basically they repeat these talking points.
And in the second story,
I am so surprised that these people can spell gynocentric or even pronounce it. Anyway, the reason why I paused in the first place was like, please do like, share, and subscribe if you can. Not just on Twitter, but on other places as well. If you're on like LinkedIn or Blue Sky, please do share it over there as well. I would really appreciate the help.
I know that the second story for you in many ways was much more challenging than doing the first story, right? Where you actually look at the potent mix of religious extremism.
Whatever she was saying is clearly influenced by Western culture. Should India have a control like China to curb that? Curb what? What, like what she was saying, or what manosphere? Please make yourself clear. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you, Roman. Please make yourself clear. What do you exactly want to curb? Okay. So that's not going to help. The only thing that is going to help is targeted campaigns or content creators who can influence people or like children to be better people and have more empathy. We come back to the same point in literally every conversation we have. India needs more empathy training. Indians need empathy training since they were children, towards women, towards different classes, towards caste, towards everything. As if we come down to it, it is the simplest thing we can do and it is the most effective things we can do. Just have more, just have more empathy for people. That's it.
And the manosphere and how that overlaps very uniquely in our country. Can you briefly tell me what were the challenges that you were sort of facing when you were looking at the second story? And why did we actually feel the need to do a second story when the first one we looked at the Indian subcontinent very specifically in terms of what the manosphere was? But we still felt something had not gotten covered yet fully, right? So tell me a little bit about the challenges and why there was a need to do part 2 of the story.
Yes. Honestly, the second story wasn't even something we planned from the start. But while working on part 1, I noticed this idea of religion kept popping up. So many of these boys seem to be subscribing to extreme religious ideologies. One teacher that I spoke to for the first story, she told me that her student, who was an admirer of Andrew Tate, he also spoke about Ayodhya and how the Babri Masjid demolition was a boon for Hindus and stuff like that. And one of the incels that I spoke to actually warned me about the supposed Islamic takeover of Kerala, and that if I kept doing what I was doing, that is writing for supposedly leftist platforms, some mullah would force me to convert and assault me if I don't. Stuff like that. I've written about all of this in the article. And the same person was also a big fan of Andrew Tate, who ironically converted to Islam.
So, as I was saying before, like these right wing movements go very hand in hand with the manosphere because it's the same idea. Like it's demonizing a minority, and it is very easy to translate a man in the manosphere to a man in the RSS and vice versa. You can always get like, oh, this person is from the manosphere. You can just like have the exact same messaging but towards a Muslim and demonize the man into hating Muslims as well. And it's very easy, and it is not just a issue with RSS, like radical Islam or radical Christianity. Always align themselves with manosphere people. Like radical ideologies always have this aspect of misogyny because it is very easy to radicalize a man against misogyny. For misogyny. And then lead him down this pipeline to religious extremism.
Himself, and then kind of twisted and manipulated the faith to suit his own worldview and agenda. So all these parallels between misogyny, nationalism, and religious extremism, all of this kept surfacing when I was in the first story, and I was wondering about all of this. And around the same time, I also came across a Guardian article that was quoting a UK counterterrorism report. It basically said that online misogyny is increasingly
No. That is not true. So what you're just writing is like, in general, mostly empathetic people are those with their needs sorted out. 90% of India is in cutthroat competition with each other for their basic needs and their family and themselves. How? That is not true. It has been shown countless times that poor people whose needs are not met are generally more empathetic towards others than people who have their needs met. That does not mean that we should keep people poor or we should like not meet people's needs. Empathy as a ability, or empathy as a, what's a good word for it? Empathy is a skill. It's a skill that needs to be developed within children. It's a skill that needs to be developed within people. It doesn't matter what your like outlook is on life. It doesn't matter if you are a good person, if you are a bad, like if you're a rich person, if you're a poor person, or anywhere in the middle. Empathy is something that is taught. Empathy is not something that comes naturally to anyone. So, and because Indian culture in general focuses so much on being like introverted and just focusing on your family and no one else, it is a breeding ground for like right-wing manospheric people, like misogynistic people, because you're always taught to like only focus on people around you, no one else. That's what I was talking about earlier with the whole blaming the poor. Because we are only taught to be like, no, look at your family, no one else. You never think about the poor people. You never think about the women. You never think about the children. That is the problem. Empathy is trained. Empathy is a skill that you need to exercise. It doesn't matter if you have money, if you don't have money. Forget about that. Just empathy is a skill. You as a person also needs to train in empathy. You might be the most empathetic person right now, but at some point of life, knowingly or unknowingly, you have trained yourself. That's what I mean.
As a gateway to further radicalization. So that kind of clicked for me. And that's why I felt we needed not just one, but two stories to really unpack what's going on. Because it's not just hate for women, it's about what that hate is growing into, basically. So about concerning challenges, it was definitely very intense. A lot of my time went into just lurking on, Reddit forums and YouTube comment sections, Telegram channels, and all of that.
Mandela says love comes naturally to a child when he is born, then how he becomes what he does, and who teaches them that their parents is circle, who is in that circle society. Yeah, exactly. You have to teach a person to hate, you have to teach a person to not be empathetic, and you also have to teach empathy as well. I mean, Mandela was right when he said that, but all of this is a like learned skill, the something that you need to practice. It's very easy, but once you grow up to a certain point, you stop loving people, and that is something, that's when like learning empathy comes in.
But just to understand the language and what's drawing people in, and you know I also spoke to several young men who were proudly calling themselves misogynist or incest. So some were very eager to talk with me, others were quite angry, a few even sent me threats, as I mentioned. But what stuck with me most were, the ones who were polite. Even they were even charming on the surface. But when you listen closely, you'd hear this quiet contempt for women that is laced into every sentence. That was more chilling than the outright threats, honestly, because then you realize that these aren't just fringe men hiding on the internet. They're the young, educated, regular boys. And their ideas are being shaped by algorithms, peer groups, and these influencers who are basically creating them a very evolved view of the world. So it also made me kind of confront how easy it is to dismiss this kind of hate as just online stuff, right? But, more at the point.
Yeah, the biggest threat of the manosphere is how much it bleeds into real life. If it did not bleed into real life, it wouldn't be that bad if we still have like a social structure that motivates us to be better. But sadly, we don't. It's easy for manosphere to bleed into real life because especially in India, it is like culturally accepted to put women down. It is culturally accepted to have this idea that women are less than. So it's very easy for manosphere people to survive in India and actually be looked up to and not demonized, which they should be. But like India is a very special case and a very special breeding ground for the manosphere.
The more I realized how much of it leaks into real life, like into how boys talk to girls in schools, how young men view relationships and all of that.
I wanted to actually ask you very specifically about this experience of reporting this story, right? Because you did this for nearly 8 months where you had to spend time speaking to people online with views that are very different from what we believe at the Newsminute newsroom, what we believe as women, what we've learned and unlearned ourselves to become. And when you're uniquely positioned in this way where you are a woman who they probably hate in many ways as a concept, but you're also a reporter where you do have to play this role of being an like observer in some ways on also sort of asking questions to try and understand them. How did you sort of tackle playing that role where I'm sure they were saying things that you were getting enraged about or you were getting upset about or you didn't agree with? Do you have a way of sort of negotiating that moment?
These online spaces are
Sorry. Aren't women also the reason for that? Are you only blaming males only for that? When you talk about the manosphere, yes, perpetuating the negative stereotypes within Indian culture is not just a male only narrative, but women, you have to understand the difference here. Men push for the manosphere and like patriarchy because it is profitable to them. Women, on the other hand, push for patriarchy because they're conditioned into it. That's the difference. So I will blame men for being in the manosphere. Again, it's called the manosphere. The overall misogyny in the Indian subculture or Indian culture is a male problem. You have to blame the males for it because that they are the primary propagators of it. But you can always ignore the like the hand that some women play in it as well. But then again, even saying that, you have to remember that women are conditioned to support this while men profit from this. There is a huge difference between those two statements. If you're conditioned into it, you do not have 100% of the blame of it. It is obvious. But if you are actively profiting from it and pushing it forward, you are doing it out of purely just profit driven purposes. That's the difference.
Hostile, especially if you are a woman reporting on them. The language they use is brutal. Some of it is hard to even quote. And there's always this tension between wanting to expose what's happening while being careful not to generalize or paint any religion with the same brush. So that was really important to me to show that this isn't about any one faith, but about how religion itself is being weaponized, right?
Like, it's been what? Ah, namaste. How are you doing, man? How are you doing? Blah, dude, I just can't spell your name ever. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. See, this we are going on for like what? Romani, can you check how long are we going? Because I can't see it, or because we are going on for so long at this point, my neck has started hurting.
So yeah, I did it because we need to see the full picture. Dealing with these particular people, I can't. We just have to take it head on. I don't think there is any other way to deal with it. Even when I was being sent threats, my response was once I got what I needed out of him, my response was just to ice him out.
But do you have a format in terms of like, do you argue with them to get them to talk more, or do you just generally keep asking follow ups and be patient? And what's the sort of strategy that you use essentially?
That was my
How does women come out of it even after knowing they are conditioned for it and still fall into the trap and do the same thing? I honestly have no good answer for you. No idea. I mean, yeah, 3.5 hours. Yeah, it's been long. See, I have no good answer for you because I don't know. I can speak as a man that I know how to get men out of the manosphere. I don't know how to, like, it's a very different kind of conditioning based around fear and stress that gets women into the manosphere. I think that is my, see, I'm not a good person to ask about women in the manosphere because I just don't know. I have worked exclusively with males in the manosphere and I know how to get a man out of the manosphere. And that just giving men a good role model. I would suggest asking, like, I don't know, Ritupura Chandram on like Twitter, how does she deal with it? Or like, I don't know, Radhika Burman or whoever. Or even like no one. Like no one, the name. Poonam, someone. He has more experience than this than me. I can only focus on men right now. I'm sorry. I cannot. I like this is the one thing I do not have an answer to.
initial tendency to argue with them. Then I realized that it was not helping. If we remain curious and if we remain open to what they want to tell us, I think they will tell us more and they feel heard in some
Yeah,
way.
I mean, men in the manosphere are children. They do not have the capacity to think. That's like treating men in the manosphere like 4-year-olds. Sorry, 4-year-olds helps more than like being angry at them because they are essentially 4-year-olds. If you like how you would treat a 4-year-old and explain like very nicely and very calmly, they understand a lot better. But sometimes they just snap back into being like, oh no, but like women are the problem. And that if they are in that stage, it's like nothing you can do. At that point, like lock them up, honestly.
Ways. And especially somehow, despite claiming to hate women so much, they really want to be heard by women, which
Yeah.
is something that really stood out. So, especially concerning, especially when it came to this one particular incel guy, self proclaimed incel guy that I spoke to, he repeatedly called me a normie, mediocre IQ, social activist types.
And normies.
Normie means people who subscribe to the normal ideas, who don't really, who are not red pilled essentially, that you have not awoken to the truth yet. So yeah, and he told me that women are lizard brains, women think with their lizard brains, stuff like that.
The only lizard brain people is Mark Zuckerberg. Have you seen his face? Hold on. I'm going to pull up Mark Zuckerberg, how he looks. Open. Like, tell me this is not a lizard brain. I dare you. I dare you. Is this not a lizard? Is this not like half lizard hybrid? Why was I looking at emus? I don't remember. Where was I? Where were we? Women are the worst of this. That's why they have to come out of it if they really want, if they want to do. Women are the worst of in this. Yes, that is true. They are the worst of in this. They always lose in this scenario. Like men will like there is such an imbalance within like patriarchy that women who are part like who are supporting patriarchy always lose as well. There is no positive out of it. They only do it out of conditioning. Unless like they are a grifter in scenario where they're not really patriarchal, they're just trying to make money out of it. There's a lot of them on the internet. Why they have to come out of it if they really want to do it? I see a second part of it. I really don't understand what you mean.
So if I take offense to all of that, then conversation is essentially over. I think what he really needed at the time was for him to be heard.
Yeah, a lot of times like manosphere guys become manosphere guys because of loneliness. It's because they don't have anywhere else to turn to. Because like this, like within patriarchy, this idea that you have a man that you can talk to, that you can share your feelings with, and share your like life with as friends, as best friends, is something that is looked down upon. You're called gay, you're called homosexual, you're called whatever. Like normal friendships are demonized within the manosphere and within Indian culture as a whole and within patriarchy. That's why you end up lonely and you end up in this like a perfect position to be picked up by the right wing, picked up by the manosphere. So when you actually have a conversation with these people, they start coming out of it, because at the end of the, like being in the manosphere, as far as I see it, is like a cry for help. Like, hey, I am so lonely, I am gonna get into hating women, even though I want nothing more than to be with a woman. I mean, like it's still their fault. Let's be clear.
So I asked him, why do you think women are lizard brained? So do you think women need to be subjugated because of that? So he's like, no, don't say everything that don't take everything that I say so seriously. So it will be a to and fro like that.
I think you touch upon it in your story as well, where you do talk about this.
Also, I don't know if you're still here, blah blah blah, but if you can, please do like, share, and subscribe. See, like every small bit will help. I'm just trying to get like the message out of like being pro LGBTQ, pro trans, pro like human rights.
The idea of loneliness, right? Being a very integral part of the existence of the manosphere itself, which I find quite interesting, especially given the hyper-connected world that we live in, where even there's a scope for an online community. And I can imagine as teenagers, most of us have experienced a certain kind of unknown loneliness that we suddenly are confronted with. But do you think in what forms were these loneliness existing to a point where they were willing to engage with this much hate? Right? Where was that coming from in a space that's so hyper connected?
Yeah. So we live in a society that ascribes a certain importance to heterosexual relationships specifically. So I think a lot of it is coming from that. And the dating world has changed a lot. Women are moving on from what was expected of them. They don't want to marry at a certain time. They don't want to date at a certain time. They're happy with themselves. So the progress when it comes to gender dynamics is very one-sided mostly. So this kind of is leaving a lot of men at a loss. So it is a systemic problem actually, which many people are taking advantage of. Basically, people like Andrew Tate and others are taking advantage of. So at this point, when there is this vacuum of women being happy with themselves and men wanting relationships but not getting them, they're taking advantage of this particular vacuum and telling men that this is a whole problem because women are now going ahead and taking your jobs and taking over your lives, leaving you behind. So that kind of turns into this kind of a deep resentment that uh, forces them to blame women instead of the system, the capitalism.
And given that most of these are young boys who are probably in high school or college and things, do you think there's an awareness out of curiosity? I just wanted to ask that. Do you think there's an awareness in schools, colleges, among teachers that there is this slow but extremely violent world lurking behind the students that they're engaging with every day? Is there an awareness in our education system?
Partly, I don't think it is something that everyone is.
As you said, men are conditioned for this arrangement. Why would they give up on something which is in their favor? Empathy. Empathy training is important. Secondly, see, patriarchy fucks both ways. That, like, it is one of my go-to comments. Patriarchy does fuck both ways. A patriarchy is also bad for men, and men don't, like, as good as it sounds for men, it is also bad for them, like, mentally and socially. It gives them all the power and all the loneliness. So overall speaking, patriarchy is still bad. So see, if you can get this point across, if you can get this point across to men that, hey, you do not have to be lonely, you don't have to be small or pathetic, you can get this point across. Plus, it's always like she made a point before she got cut about capitalism. That is also something very important within these discussions, is because, like, this focus on, like, the top players and, like, hey, if you want to be like me, like Andrew Tate or I don't know, Nick Fuentes or whatever, and like go around like having sex with multiple women or going around having like nice cars and whatever, you have to be like, you have to follow capitalism, you have to like hero worship, you have to like have this dream that goes on and whatever. So that is essentially bad for these men, because they are going to lose money, they are going to lose friends, they are going to be lonelier, they're going to be more depressed, the depression cases are going to increase, there's going to be more male focused suicides within males. And that overall, if you can communicate that to men, they will give it up, because at the end of the day, like, patriarchy is not a good thing even for men. It is a worse thing for women and women's safety, but it is also like a bad thing for men to have as well. Like, think about it. What do you get out of misogyny? Say you are like a very misogynistic person in this world. What do you get? Nothing. Nobody dates you. Nobody goes out with you. The only chance of having a woman in your life is you have to literally force her to be through marriage. And she's going to despise you even if she has to say that she likes you. It's completely pointless and it's not even self-serving. It is self-destructive. The only reason you are in the manosphere because you're so depressed and so lonely that the idea of having someone to talk to is more important to you than looking at an entire 50% part of the population as less than human. That's all there is.
They should be at this point. So in Australia and all, they are introducing courses specifically to counter online misogyny. So that is something that we should aspire to.
Yes,
but
that is something we should definitely aspire to.
There are quite a few teachers that I spoke to in schools and tutors who deal with young kids who are very aware of what is going on with them in their online lives and who tried to, lead them to a different path in all of that. But in our government schools, I don't think so. So there should be, we should, our aim should be to bring us to that point basically where the teachers and the parents are especially aware of what is happening.
And last question, Lakshmi, I wanted to really ask you is what makes this story really unique for me, not just as a reader but also as your colleague who works in the same newsroom, is that this is one of the stories. I think very few newsrooms in India do stories that are not reaction based, right? The way we look at our newsrooms, we end up reacting to the events that are happening around us. A lot of times we are caught up in the rut of so much breaking news happening every day and having to go and cover it. This is one of those stories which actually looks at a certain ecosystem that's being created for something that could become a lot more dangerous in the years to come if it hasn't already become dangerous in many ways. And it's also a tricky story for a reporter to understand if the report does its job, right? Because unlike a lot of the stories that we do, this doesn't hold one politician or one particular institution or one police personnel or one individual to account, but rather we're all in some ways complicit of not really paying attention to what's going on around us, right? So when you're trying to hold a culture and a society and an attitude accountable, how do you sort of assess the impact of your story, for lack of a better word? Um, because I do know that in the last couple of months, this is one of the stories that has received a lot of feedback and has gotten read very, very widely, right? I think even Dhanya and we were all quite taken aback at the response coming in from parents and teachers and all of that. So I wanted to ask you as a reporter, how did you sort of assess the impact? Was there one or two responses that you felt, this is where my story really worked?
Okay, yeah, that's honestly one of the toughest parts of reporting on something like this. As you said, you don't always get a neat arc of impact. As you said, there's no one person to hold accountable, or there isn't any law that is getting changed overnight. But what you do start noticing is how the conversation shifts, right? The response to both stories actually has been pretty incredibly telling. A number of people messaged me saying their kids watch Android 8, but that they didn't know it was this serious of an issue. I will actually read some of the messages. This is something that a parent had sent me. Dear Lakshmi, thank you for sharing your article on the influence of the manosphere on young minds. As a parent of three daughters and with boys in our family as well, I feel it's important to share my perspective on this pressing issue. I'm particularly convinced that the way a father treats his wife and other female family members has a profound impact on a young boy's mindset. In our household, we make it a point to treat everyone with respect and dignity. This approach ensures that our sons understand from an early age that respect and equality are not just ideals, but essential elements of everyday life. So there are a lot of people who sent me messages saying, we were actually introspecting about their own lives and how, these kinds of changes have to be inculcated through their own families first. And there was journalist Shubha Rao who wrote to me saying, as the amma of a 22-year-old boy, I have been terrified seeing this creep into children's lives. It's quite the endeavor to raise boys well, to respect others, to be kind, to understand consent, to love without hate, to protect from the sage. And thanks for writing this. So I was happy. I was very happy to receive all of these messages, but I was particularly happy when even some of the young boys that I spoke to wrote back because it was important to me that, I approached this from an empathetic angle and not really dismiss the boys that we're writing about. So one of them, a medical student who had been a part of the manosphere before eventually getting out of it. He had a small gripe also. He sent me this. Hey, so I read the article, excellent writing, well balanced too. Although many of the people who have shared it don't seem to have the same nuanced opinion. Anyway, thankful that you wrote this well. So this is a gripe that many people, quite a few people had.
I know that you started the second story with one particular conversation that you were having online. Did that person or that account end up reading the story? Was there?
I'm not sure. I haven't reached back to him because the last message that he sent me was a rape threat. So, and I was not sure if I should follow up with him. But yeah,
What
I'm
the
sure that if
fuck?
he has read it, he would reach out to me. Uh, anyway. But yeah, this message really made me happy because one of the rights that he had, even when I was speaking to him for the story, was that he wasn't sure if this was going to be an empathetic take, if this was going to be a one-sided, um, today's feminism kind of a take, and not an intersectional approach that some people would expect. But then he was happy that it was an intersectional, more nuanced approach. So that made me really happy. Anyway, yeah, that's how it goes. And obviously, there was a lot of defensiveness too. People trying to argue not all men, or claiming I was attacking religion, even when the story made it clear that this isn't about any one faith. I think that kind of discomfort also signals that we have touched a nerve, or that we are asking questions that people don't want to confront, right? So for me, it was, even a few people start looking at the young men around them a little differently, like with more awareness or more responsibility, then the story has already done this job.
That is true.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the work that you do, Lakshmi, and for the writing that you do. It adds so much to all of our worlds and all of our readership. I just want to add that after the first story that Lakshmi did, she and Danya did an interview, which was quite eye opening, which was with two young teenagers based in Bangalore, where the idea was that no matter how much we intellectualize, no matter how much we research, to really understand what's going on in schools, we had to listen to teenagers themselves telling us about this world that we often are so far away from and so removed from. So you will find the link of that interview below this one. You can go watch that. It's way more interesting in so many ways than listening to adults talk about the manosphere itself. So please do go and watch that interview that Tanya
Sure, and
Lakshmi has
subscribe
done.
to News Minute if you can.
And if
Seriously, these are good interviews that they do. This is actually quite good readership. So it's been what, 4 hours now? I am in pain. I'm not going to hide that fact. My neck and jaws are hurting, and I'm not used to going this long. I'm used to going for like 3 hours max in lectures, not more. And I'm quite in pain. So I think we are going to cover a little bit of Yamuna, but really fast. The third and final story that we are going to talk about is Yamuna. When it comes to Yamuna, a lot of things have happened, especially within the scope of, like, there is a whole festival and Yamuna is poisoned. I am sorry, it is just poisoned. There is nothing that you can do that is going to stop Yamuna from being poisoned at this point. So there is no point in going for Chat Puja. There is no point in going for like any of these sorts. Mostly because whatever you do, you're gonna get poisoned and you're gonna face the issues from this. So I'm just gonna leave you with this. Whatever show that they show on TV with the BJP and the right-wing circles, do not fall for those traps. Do not fall for any of that, please, because they do not care for your lives. They really do not. You need to protect your own self. You need to protect your health. So please, take care. Do not fall for this trap here. Here they are trying to like screen grab of like what Subhash Rao said. They created an entire side lake so you can take pictures with the Prime Minister because he's too afraid to go in the actual Yamuna because it is poisoned. It is not good for anything. So please, 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 I beg you, take care of yourself and be safe. Thank you. And just some good mice. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for all of this. I could have never expected a response like this today, especially because, again, I'm just starting. And thank you so much for the interaction. It was a blessing for all of you to be here, for all of you to ask me questions, for all of you to be nice about it. And I'm sorry, Roman, I really went off on you a lot. And Bliss, thank you so much. You are the best. See ya. Goodbye. Why did you retract your statement of bye? You're literally the best. You have been here from the start, and thank you so much. I'm gonna. You do realize, like, I'm going to like cut off, like, when this thing is processed, the entire video is going to be cut off in the middle because of reasons. If I don't know if you noticed. Anyway, I'm going to stop streaming. See ya. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being here. This is always a pleasure. I will see you again on Wednesday, and tomorrow I have my singing lessons. So I will I will try and sing. I don't